Sim, let's start with the green power for Europe's digital future. Is the energy market ready for what Europe is planning for its digital future and what it needs to do to grow the economy?
Not yet, but we're working on it. No, but really, when I mentioned digital energy, then one of the things that we did in September in the margins of our informal energy ministers meeting in Tallinn was to initiate and to sign Tallinn e-energy declaration, which brings together stakeholders from the public sphere. So we have all the member states plus the Commission. We have European business associations and continuously adding them to the signatories, as well as European businesses. And the point of the declaration is to create a common space where to talk about the different challenges and opportunities that the future energy sector has. Because I think one of the really the key aspects of the whole package is not to try to incorporate existing business models, existing support schemes or ways of conducting transactions into the new framework, but really to create a framework that can accommodate unimaginable things. So we don't see that we hold the scepter of truth or that we have 2020 sight in the future. So the package needs to be flexible enough to accommodate all these new technologies and business models.
Okay.
And one of the, just to mention quickly, one of the additional benefits here is that it's not only a top-down process of making the citizens of Europe participate in the energy transition, but really the digital tools should grow the appetite for renewable energy.
Well, I just want to pick up on what Sim said, because I think this is something really important, and the digitalization of the energy sector is where I think we will really make progress and where we can really bring some of these new interesting technologies online. I mean, some of the things in the market are really designed to make sure that consumers, and I mean also communities and big businesses and small businesses and individuals in their own homes, can produce more electricity themselves, take advantage of these new renewable energies, introduce with better smart metering, demand response, adjust to pricing. And so the digitalization goes really hand in hand with introducing the renewables into the sector. And it also relates to, as John mentioned initially, the variability of renewables. If the wind is not blowing, unless you have a good storage facility and you've got some backup, you're not going to be able to provide the electricity, and the same with the sun. But there are other renewable energy sources, of course. So these kinds of improved digital tools will be really very important. So they go hand in hand with new technologies. And I think this is somewhere where we really all together have to work harder. I mean, if you just think about the change that we've seen just in the renewable energy sector, even in the last 2 years, the costs have come down dramatically. And these two gentlemen will tell you all about that in all sorts of detail. But this has changed completely the environment, the scenarios for the future, and the way in which we can use these new energies and in a much more efficient and effective way, and also improve the efficiency. I mean, energy efficiency and digitalization is another very important area.
Thank you. Pierre, what do you expect to change? Where is the pace driving innovation? What are we going to see next?
I mean, just to pick up on Megan's point on the cost of renewables coming down, if you look at offshore wind a couple of years ago compared to today, the costs have come down by about 50%. We're talking about CFD prices in the UK most recently, £57 per megawatt hour, including grid connection. Even lower in the Netherlands, etc. So it's been absolutely phenomenal. Onshore wind has been part of that story also. You see, tenders yielding costs of 34 euros per megawatt hour in Spain, for example. And we expect this trend to continue. And we did, obviously, digitalization has a huge role to play in system integration and unlocking demand response. But it's also going to improve significantly operation and maintenance of wind farms, the design of wind farms, extending their lifetime, etc. So this digitalization is really going to be a key enabler to keep those trends going forward.
Okay. The disruption element, Sam, what is enabling the transformation?
A number of things. Within my own sphere of work, nobody saw it coming. The idea that companies would start to buy their own renewable electricity, invest in wind farms at scale. When we started up RE100, people didn't really take it that seriously. That was in 2014. Now we'll be welcoming our 112th member on Friday, and it's growing incredibly fast. So this is a huge disruptive force, a positive disruptive force, bringing an entirely new sector into the energy system. And I think, talking about digital disruption, if you think back to the 1975. Kodak invented the digital camera. They put together a bit of a tape recorder and an old cine camera and came up with the first digital picture and hid it because they didn't really want anybody to disrupt their business model. And then in '85, a forward-looking chief executive said, right, we need to look at this. At what point are we going to be really threatened by this? After an extensive study, they gave themselves a 10-year window. Okay. 1985 to 1995, we need to be on the case with digital, otherwise everybody else is going to take over. And lo and behold, they did absolutely nothing with it, except try and add a bit of digital technology onto their chemicals business of making film. And lo and behold, in 2012, they went bust. Now, we're seeing a similar rate of change in the energy industry, and I think that organisations that haven't changed, we will see having their Kodak moment, or they may have already had their Kodak moment, but we'll be seeing that coming along the line as we go. Okay,
Megan, the energy markets, is it a broken model? Does it need fixed? Does it need to be completely redesigned?
I don't, well, completely redesigned, that would imply that things have not been working at all in the past. I mean, the idea of the new, and you should ask Sim, he's the expert on this, the idea of the new market design legislation is to make the market much better, make it work much better, remove regulated prices, make the market respond better to proper prices, make sure that, and as I said, again, the consumers are at the heart of this, that they can adjust to prices, they can feed in renewable sourced energy into the system, and that they can use it much better. So that's the idea behind the legislation on energy, on electricity markets. That's really what they're intended to do, to make them work much better. And this, of course, is absolutely essential too for the renewable energy introduction, and it's not just an introduction, it's existed already for years, but to have the renewable energies come in at a much greater rate. I think it's the existing proportion of wind and renewables in electricity is about 10%, isn't it?
Yeah, 10-11%.
And you reckon that it should be 30% in the next.
It could be if we get the policies right. Yes.
But again, because of the nature of some renewables, this variability is really important to adjust. So there are many ways. But I want to mention another aspect as well, which I mentioned very briefly at the beginning, and that relates to community production, off-grid solutions, big industries and small industries who are creating their own renewable energy sources themselves and using energy themselves. John mentioned data centers, which are huge users of energy, but they also produce a lot of heat. So there are all sorts of interesting, innovative examples of people using the heat generated from data centers to heat the offices, and rivers that come through to cool off the data centers, and there are these heat exchange systems. So there are all sorts of interesting potential there.